Podcasting from the beautiful state of Maine, welcome to another episode of the Learning from Leaders podcast, the show that focuses on identifying and developing the skills and behaviors that will inspire, empower, and compel others to follow your lead. Listen as Patrick's guests talk about the powerful leadership approaches they have identified and developed, which are vital for leading in today's challenging times. These are the same approaches that will positively impact you as a leader too. Learning from Leaders provides the right balance of leadership research with real-world scenarios, making it easy for you to rise above your best. All right, let's start the show.
Welcome, everybody. This is Patrick Verino. I want to thank you for joining me on another episode of Learning from Leaders. On today's episode, we're going to talk about resilience. And more importantly, how do we build resilience? And I'm going to talk about it in really three different behaviors. By this point, you know that I love acronyms. So this is somewhat of an acronym because we're going to talk about it in terms of three letters, G, P, and S. And we're going to think about this as our guide to developing resilience. It's our GPS for developing resilience. And we're going to talk about three different characteristics that, or behaviors, or even activities that we need to do to provide the space for us to become resilient. But before I start on that, I'm going to cite an article that was actually from 2015. It was in the Harvard Business Review, and January 5th to be exact. And the title of the article is What Resilience Means and Why It Matters. And it was written by Andrea Owens. I'm not going to talk about the whole article. I want to actually cite one specific part that was a reference to a woman named Diane Coutu. And I hope I got that right. The spelling on her last name is Coutu. And she suggested that there were three characteristics to resilience. One was a staunch acceptance of reality. Two, it was a deep belief, often buttressed by strong values, that life has meaning. And last, and that those individuals that exhibited strong resilience also had an uncanny ability to improvise. And while all three of those are great, I'm going to talk about a fourth one, which is around selflessness. And I think too often resilience can take on the belief that to be resilient, there's some rugged individualism to it, that it's all about you conquering the world. And I think that's where the idea of selflessness, and we'll talk about it in terms of generosity, how that actually can help us build our own resilience by being for others. When we talk about the three different components, this GPS that I mentioned earlier, right? This guide to how do we build resilience. First, when we talk about gratitude, and we know there's so much research out there right now in regards to the impact that gratitude has, or demonstrating or practicing gratitude. In some of the work that I've done, I also created what's called a power journal, which is based on 5 different behaviors that are all researched in terms of helping people to increase their well-being. And one of those is around gratitude. And specifically, and I do it every morning when I wake up, I have a journal that I write in, but the first thing that I do in that journal is I write down that morning 3 things that I'm grateful for. And what I try and challenge myself to do is, at least during the week, of try to mix those up. Have variety in terms of what I'm grateful for. And it's difficult, right, at times to be thinking, well, geez, what else do I have to be grateful for? And to me, that's exactly where the power of this comes in, is that when we force ourselves to think about what other things we're grateful for, what we realize is that, boy, you know what? Maybe I thought things were really bad right now, but as I've gone through and look at this inventory of things that I am grateful for, I realize that I've got more going for me than I thought I did. And I will tell you, I think even more so when we can find ways to be grateful for the challenges that we're experiencing, we're even stronger. We even build more resilience, that muscle, when we're able to do that. And what I mean by that is I might say, you know what, I'm really grateful for maybe this period of time where I had some of my organizations that I work with stop completely. And I'm grateful for that right now because it forced me to really take a look at the challenges that were going on for these organizations right now, what's coming, and how to reformulate some of the models that I had so that they address some of the future challenges that are coming. This actually is one of them. I mean, around resilience, it's something that certainly we've all probably thought about, but it's something that really needs to be much more in the forefront now of helping people understand how important it is to develop this, and that we all have the ability to do that. We can become more resilient when we act in certain ways and we build this muscle. Along with that gratitude, if we look at it in terms of the Harvard Business Review article, those three things, well, gratitude really helps us to accept reality, right? To be grateful for where we are. And it also helps us to deal with life in a way that puts meaning around it, right? We're grateful for where we are, that our life has meaning to it. And when we can practice this gratitude on a regular basis, again, preferably every morning or maybe at the end of every day, actually in the journal that I created, the recommendation is that you are grateful in the morning, 3 things that I'm grateful for in the morning, but at the end of the day, I write down what went well during the day. Because too often, right, if you think about it, what do? We focus on maybe what we didn't get done today, the challenges, maybe the argument I got in with somebody, what didn't go right, and we're going to sleep in a state of mind that is negative. Whereas if we can end our day, we almost bookend it. If we can end our day in a positive place, and we've started our day out in a positive place, then the likelihood of us having a positive day in the middle is pretty good. Now, again, we're all going to have bad days. This isn't a Pollyanna approach, but it certainly is about really finding ways to increase the odds that our days go the way that we want them to go. And we do have control over that. So after we talk about gratitude, that first letter in our GPS, we then move on to purpose. What is our purpose? And when we really know what our purpose is, it helps us to really do a few things. One is to strengthen our expectation that we're going to get there. It leverages, I think, our ability to demonstrate faith and self-confidence. And both of those, I think, are so important. And we know the research, and again, this isn't meant to be a spiritual conversation, but certainly there is ample research out there, both as it relates to studies on purpose and studies on faith, that when they look in terms of well-being, longevity, that there is evidence to suggest that those people that have a sense of purpose and that practice faith live longer. And most likely, I would say live happier, more fulfilled lives. Now, when I think of faith as well, it doesn't necessarily have to be religion. It could just be a belief that I can get where I'm going to. Where I want to go, I can get there. Now, when we are about purpose, a strong purpose, that to me involves drive. As in the Harvard Business Review article, when they talked about it as though this uncanny ability to improvise, when I hear that, what I immediately go to is resourcefulness. Again, another one of these, when we have a strong purpose, I believe that we naturally will activate resourcefulness because we're determined. We know what we're doing and where we want to go. And if this door closes or if there's a detour in the road, I will find another way to get there. To me, that is resourcefulness. We all have that ability. We don't all have the same access to certain resources. And some of these things are our physical makeup. I can't make myself any taller than I am. There are certain resources that I have to deal with, right? So in organizations, it might be time. It might be financial. It might be in my personal life. I've only got so much money right now, right? That is a limited resource for me at this moment. But what I do have equal access to as much as everybody else is resourcefulness, is finding ways to get where I need to go. And that's really what this second characteristic really talks about in terms of purpose. When you have purpose, you become more resilient because you don't allow the things that would get in the way of many people to get in your way. You're just driven. And we need that, right? So we've got gratitude, we've got purpose. Those two, I think, fit nicely with the Harvard Business Review article that I've mentioned. The last one, I think, is equally as important, if not more, because it deals with ourselves, but it also helps other people as well. And that's around selflessness. And more specifically, I'll talk about it in terms of generosity. When we find ways to activate generosity, to be for others, again, we know the research that's around this in terms of what generosity does, not only for ourselves, for the sender, but also for the receiver of the generous acts. And there are ways for us to do this, right? We can volunteer. We have a high unemployment rate right now. What are all those people doing that are out of work right now? If you just sit around and dwell on how bad things are, they probably will get worse. But what we have the ability to do, and I used to teach an interviewing class, and one of the things I would recommend to individuals was go out and volunteer. Find some place that you can have a positive impact on somebody else, because we know from research what that does to us. When we are for others, it activates neurochemicals in ourselves that increase our own happiness and well-being when we're for others. And also it provides that for somebody else, a benefit to somebody else. And it also provides hopefully the opportunity in what we call reciprocity, that person generally feels an obligation to give back as well. So we've created this ripple effect by our own selflessness. And as a component of that, what we've done is we've activated belongingness. And that's where I talked earlier about, we can't have this rugged individualism, that we need each other. We need each other. And there's so much research out there in regards to the impact that belongingness has on our well-being, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of those things. We're pack animals. We need to connect with other people. And to build resilience certainly involves our ability to act selflessly and to help other people out. Even when we're feeling, at our lowest, that's probably the best time to be out trying to help somebody else. Because what we find is, one, we're making connections with other people. We realize we're not alone. We're seeing the positive impact of what we're doing on somebody else, and that can drive us going forward to strengthen that resilience even more. I hope those three things have been helpful to you, right? We think about this in terms of a GPS, the direction that we can go in to build our own resilience. It's around gratitude, purpose, and selflessness. And if we focus on those three things, our ability to stand strong when we feel at our weakest is going to be magnified, because we've built this muscle around resilience, or the things that we need to become more resilient. We all have that ability to do this. And I think as leaders, we need that. We need to be resilient, because our actions are what inspire other people. And if they can't see us being resilient, if they see us crumble or act in ways that are really disruptive or aggressive to other people because of our own inability to deal with the challenges that we're faced with, we will not inspire people. And therefore, we will lose our followers. On most of my posts over the past several months, you will notice that at the end of them, I put, we can be better. As it relates to building our own resilience, we need to do this. We need to find ways to strengthen our own resilience. And when we do that, not only will we become better, we will help others to become better in the process. I hope you'll take this challenge and find ways to go out and develop your own resilience. Because when you do, you truly will be rising above your best. Let's go do it. Peace.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Learning from Leaders podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please feel free to rate, review, and subscribe on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate that effort. Until next time, keep rising above your best as a leader.